Hey guys, one more video. I forgot to include this in my last video, and this was about the jobs report that came out. Excuse me, and it's written in reference to the number of job cuts in October. It's reported by CNBC. Job cuts in October hit highest level for the month in 22 years. So y'all can see that headline. There it is. Job cuts in October hit highest level for the month in 22 years, Challenger says. And you can see, reported by Jeff Cox today at 7:23 a.m. And I found this post in my Facebook feed, and I had just done a video in this for this right here, that a judge ruled that SNAP benefits must be fully paid by Trump administration by Friday. I don't think that's going to happen. No, it's not. But anyway, the job cuts for October totaled 153,074, a 183% surge from September and 175% higher than the same month a year ago. It was the highest level for any October since 2003 and has been the worst year for layoffs since 2009. Well, I did a little digging, and I'm going to make sure that I have this up to show you. I did a little digging to see who was president in 2003 and 2009. So let's go back to that article. So it says in this first bullet point here, it was the highest level for any October since 2003. George W. Bush was president during 2003, and he had been in the presidency for 2.5 years, almost 3 years by this time. This year has also been the worst year for job layoffs since 2009. Barack Obama was president in 2009, and I believe he had just been, yes, he had just been inaugurated at the time in the same year that the job losses were bad. He had just been elected, and that was the primary reason why Judge George W. Bush lost that race. Barack Obama succeeded him, and he couldn't, I don't believe he could, he couldn't run again. I don't even remember. Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was running against Obama. But Obama inherited this from George W. Bush, and history shows that overall in the 20th century, every Republican president has had the worst economies than any Democratic president. I'm just going to set that right there for you to marinate on. But yeah, I'm going to go back to this jobs report. And then it also talks about companies in the technology sector announced 33,281 cuts, nearly 6 times the level in September. Amazon has been in the news a lot for part of this, that a lot of the new generation buildings are now fully robotic, and the only humans in those buildings are those who are trained to control the robots and fix the robots, and those are usually engineers and software people. And Amazon is saying that it's managing a lot of their stuff through AI now. And then the next bullet point, like in 2003, a disruptive technology is changing the landscape. And so this coming in on the heels of today being the first day of the longest government shutdown in the history of this country. You've got federal workers who have been furloughed, and a lot of them, whose words came out of Donald Trump's mouth himself, that they were going to be fired. And then you've got federal workers who have been deemed essential, who now have missed 2 paychecks. They get paid twice a month, and so they have gone a whole month without getting paid. Donald Trump issued an order to all states, actually to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and told them to withhold SNAP benefits to 42 million people in the United States who need the SNAP benefits to buy food. And then making the announcement that it's going to get worse before it gets better. Yes, he said that. And here we have it. 153,000 jobs lost in October. And the retail sector has already said people are going to be hard pressed to find part-time jobs during the holiday season to make ends meet, because they're just not going to be there. I've actually decided to dial back a little bit on some of the work that I do for the HOA board that I belong to. Not entirely, because this will be the wrong time to do it, because we're going through property management company changes. There's a tiny little bit of infighting back and forth going on the board. But I've said this on other videos before. There's no shame in my part. I used to work for Amazon out in Kansas City, Missouri, up until 2024. And I had started out as a packer, and then I was able to get promoted into HR. Well, I lost my job last February, and I ran out of my money. I lost my car. I lost 90% of my possessions that were in storage, because I lost the storage unit because I ran out of money, didn't have all this. The GoFundMe page that I'd set up, it was too late to recover any of that, and it wasn't enough money anyway. And so that I would not be homeless at 62 years old, I moved back to Charlotte, and hadn't been able to find a job here, either with my background in HR or my background in insurance. And so I decided to start my own company. I'm a commissioned notary public and a commissioned e-notary, trying to get my drone licenses so that I can help real estate agents with information on homes, but even the real estate market, there may be a bust again. But also trying to do other streams of income. I am an ordained minister to perform weddings, and but because it is slow and steady, but not really steady, but wrong phrase, to try to get this business done, that I'm trying to do it without a car, and not being that close to public transportation. It's very difficult. And so I found out in April that I was type 2 diabetic. I was a little incensed when I found out, because when I was still in Kansas City, I'd had a mild heart attack. And um, there was no damage done to my heart. They put a stent in one of my arteries. It was 60%. Smartwatch saved my life then. They were saying that is a good thing you had your smartwatch on, because most people, when they come to see us, their arteries are blocked 90%. So it wasn't that bad, but I was overweight. My job was stressful. If I'm telling the truth, honestly, after the first year, I didn't like my job. I didn't. And if I'm even more honest, I would just say I didn't like half the people that I work with, because they just didn't care about their job. And it was very difficult for me to allow people to do what they could do and yet not raise their game level up to mine. And yet they were getting recognition for it and I wasn't. And so, anyway, there are other videos about that. And so what I'm saying is, I was able to apply for early benefits, early retirement, to get Social Security, so I have some kind of money coming in. But there's a caveat to that. When you take your early benefits, the first year that you get it, only during those 12 months do you have the opportunity to suspend your retirement benefits. But if you do that, then you have to pay that back to Social Security. And that option never afforded it to me. I was actually my plan was to do that after the first 3 checks that I received, hoping that I would have gotten a job then, but nothing panned out. Even some of the recruiting companies that reached out to me, it wasn't because of the recent experience I had. They just wanted me to jump into something brand new. And then it was so far away, there was no way that I could get to these jobs. And so the decision I've made now is to try to find work where I can use my notary commission, primarily maybe with dealers, processing their titles. That will get me title experience under my belt, or with mortgage companies, with home titles, title companies, processing those. Maybe even the DMV, because the North Carolina DMV, it's supposed to be hiring people, and they've already hired some people, but you never can see those jobs. And so I'm going to put myself back in the fray, because I am also a SNAP recipient. The amount of them, and it's not a lot, because at the time I had just gotten my Social Security benefits, and it wasn't enough. In fact, my Social Security benefits are not even enough for me to qualify to gain insurance on the Affordable Care Act. I was automatically enrolled, because I was so low. I was automatically enrolled in the North Carolina Medicaid plan. And that's why I have insurance and was able to get a doctor to check me out. And that's when I found out that that I was type 2. The reason I was incensed is because when I had my heart attack before, that's where I lost my train of thought in the point then, that they could have told me that the reason I had the heart event was because of my diabetes. The doctors here in Charlotte actually drew a line to that. And so I've been on that journey, and I'm going to have to, in order to maintain this now that I'm no longer on paper a diabetic, because my A1C came back as being 5.3, which means not only am I out of the diabetic range, I'm also out of the pre-diabetic range. And so now I'm on a maintenance journey. And a lot of it is due to changing my diet and exercising. But the information now, because I was on Lantus, which was insulin, I've been taken off of that. But I'm still on Ozempic. And both the heart doctors and my PCP wanted me to be on that, because Ozempic is going to help me reverse my insulin resistance. And I'll know how far along I am with that when I have my annual next month, when they do all my panels, particularly my lipid panel. But in order for me to now build muscle, because the Ozempic is a GL1 drug where it helps people lose weight along the journey. But it doesn't, the misconception is that Ozempic, just like metformin and all these other things, actually help you lose weight, and the weight coming off is fat. It's not just fat, it's muscle mass too. So if you don't work out and everything, you're actually going to be a shadow of your former self. And you have to build the muscle, and muscle is what helps you process your insulin. And so I watched a video today where people were concentrating on reducing the blood sugar. But the heart of the matter is it's to reverse or fix the insulin resistance. And I didn't have that in my brain until I saw that video. And if you hear my phone dinging, that's fine. I think it's my brother letting me know, because my nephew is actually getting married next Wednesday. And small ceremony, and then they're going to have the major ceremony next year, which I will be at. And maybe they'll get an opportunity for me to marry them, since the uncle is ordained. So my point is, all of us are going to have to make some hard decisions, and we have to make some changes and redo our priorities to be able to survive. And particularly with my business, it's been difficult. I've joined one chamber, which has kind of let me down a bit. I was intimating to a guy who's become a friend of mine in the chamber that I feel disconnected now. But I have to figure out why I feel disconnected so I can fix that. But I'm about to join another chamber in reference to my company, to see if that will help me as well. But in the meantime, I have to have other income coming in, and I have to be careful with the type of job I get, and whether it's full-time or part-time, because of the hourly rate, because I don't want to get too deep into penalties by making too much money. For every dollar that you go over the level while drawing Social Security, for every $2 you're over, you'll be taxed $1. And the last thing I need on this diabetic journey is for my stress level to go up, because that affects your A1C. Getting sick affects your A1C. There are all these things you have to manage. And this is with being a type 2. I can't imagine what I would have been doing if I had been late in life diagnosed as a type 1. But I just thought I'd jump on and talk about the job cuts, the government shutdown. And again, I'll remind everybody, the two longest government shutdowns in the history of this country, both have been under the leadership of Donald J. Trump. And I will say it just like I've said before, and I'm going to call out these three entities because the Republicans control the White House, the Republicans control the House of Representatives, the Republicans control the Senate, and yet they're trying to blame the shutdown on the Democrats. Ask them to define what a clean resolution is, a clean continuing resolution is. And I'll remind you that short-term bill to fund the government was only going to be through November the 21st anyway. And they were going to try to use that as leverage to not do anything about the Medicaid cuts and the Affordable Care Act things, because right now we're in the middle of an insurance enrollment with the Affordable Care Act. And if those cuts stay in place, we're talking about people's monthly premiums being anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 a month. And that's not sustainable, meaning that hundreds of thousands of people are going to lose their insurance. And if you honestly don't think that this is not political, I don't know what it is that I can can do to convince you that it is political, because the Republicans are doing it, and they're getting some help from some of the Democrats that need to go. I've never said this in any of my videos before, but I'm actually going to start adding it in. Kamala Harris tried to tell you. She tried to tell you. And everything she has said has come to fruition. But you just didn't want a woman, let alone a black woman, to lead this country. And so here we are. But for those of you who understand this, take heart. Because Tuesday is not the last of it. The blue tsunami that happened on Tuesday, that's not the last of it. That's just a precursor of what's coming. Progressives and Democrats and centrists, we're taking this country back. And so as I end this video, I want you to remember two things always. Elections have consequences, and resistance is not futile. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.